Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I've got a very special one for you, and I don't think I've ever done anything like this, but, well, first of all, I've got an Elder Dragon. I think that's pretty fitting with one of the original commanders. We're going to be taking this deck in a way that I don't think you maybe have ever thought about doing. Maybe it's kind of off the wall and kind of crazy, and also what does make this episode special is I've got a second version of this deck, and you gotta blame Eddie for me. Blame Eddie in the comments below, because Eddie pointed something out that kind of makes a different spin on the deck, which can be really cool as well. So I'm gonna quickly at the very end of this episode take you through just some small adjustments that you can do to the deck to really change it into something pretty out there. But yeah, with all that said, let's jump into it. So Chromium is the commander for this deck. Now, why is Chromium the commander? Well, is it because it's a 7/7 Elder Dragon that costs 8 mana in total, 2 white, blue, black, that's got flying and rampage too, and also has an upkeep cost? No, that's not the reason. The reason is, well, this is an Esper commander. And it's also one that is very budget friendly in 64 cents. And it's also one that, well, your opponents might not take seriously. In fact, Chromium is one of the least played Esper commanders of all time because, well, it's pretty terrible. I mean, personally, what in the world is Rampage even? You don't have to know that. I guess you do if you actually end up playing this and putting it down and just trying to swing with it or whatnot. But you know what you do need to know is how this deck works, because this deck works in a very interesting way where our goal, and we're going to do this in a very interesting way. We are going to be getting every single creature into play from the deck. And yeah, we're going to be doing it in a very off-the-wall, crazy way. And yeah, sure, if you want to play Chromium, you can play Chromium. You can actually switch out Chromium with any other Esper commander, and this deck will work. There's actually some that probably work better in the deck too. Again, the goal of it being Chromium, though, just as I was kind of building the deck and putting it together, I was like, okay, I definitely want it to be these 3 colors so it actually works. But, yeah, who's going to be the commander? And I just kind of want it to be a surprise to your opponents, again, on what this deck does. So, Chromium is giving up absolutely nothing on what this deck wants to do. And, in fact, your opponents might be like, oh, it's like a Chromium Voltron deck. Definitely not. Definitely not. So, with all that said, well, this is a very budget-friendly, crazy experiment. $16.57. Keep in mind that doesn't include the cost of basic lands or shipping. But yeah, you might already have those basics, or you can borrow some from friends, etc., etc. Regardless, again, very budget friendly. At the time of building this, every single card in the deck outside of the commander, which is slightly over 50 cents, is 50 cents or less. So yeah, with all that said, let's jump into this crazy experiment. So, first up, let's talk about the golden pig of this deck, which is Lumbering Battlement, and it shows you a certain aspect of what this deck wants to do. It's just an 18-cent card. Very fantastic. 4 or 5 beasts with vigilance that cost 4 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-token creatures you control until it leaves the battlefield. It's going to get +2/+2 for each card exiled with it. Now, we don't really care that this gets absolutely massive. What we do care about is that this is basically, I kind of like to call them like Fiend Hunter type effects, okay? Because of the original Fiend Hunter. Anyways, when this enters the battlefield, we store up other creatures. We store up the rest of our army, potentially, and just say, hey, you all just sit, hang tight, I'm holding on to you, okay? When I leave, you get to come back. And because of that, we can really use and abuse ETBs. And there's some fantastic ETBs that we want to use and abuse. And again, we've got all creatures in this deck. Outside of lands. We got all creatures in this deck, and the goal is to get them all out. And with this, we most definitely can. So this is step 1. All right, step 1, Lumbering Battlement. I guess step 1 would be get other creatures in play that may have some ETBs. But yeah, step 1 when it comes to actually the tactics. Lumbering Battlement. Let's go. But as we move on to tactic number 2, don't blink, because outside of Lumbering Battlement, yeah, we've got some other blink effects as well, including a mass blink effect like Glorious Protector. 3/4 Angel Cleric with flash and flying, also has foretell cost of 2 and a white. Enters the battlefield and may exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until it leaves the battlefield. So, I mean, this is very good. The problem, not problem, but slight downside to it, is that it does say you can't exile angels, and that actually can be decently relevant. So that's why, even though Lumbering Battlement is 1 mana more, it is better because it doesn't have that same restriction. Now, this can actually be better in certain circumstances. Again, like Flash, you can just flash it in to protect your other creatures from a board wipe, your non-angels. That being said, it not being able to, exile angels can be pretty impactful, but it can still be a very good card. Next up, Restoration Angel. Yep, this is an angel. And yeah, you know what? You cannot exile it with Glorious Protector. And actually, this can't exile Glorious Protector either. 3/4, Flash Flying Angel for 4 mana. Sounds familiar. Enters the battlefield to exile target non-angel creature controller. Turn that card to the battlefield under control. Again, unfortunately, you can't exile Glorious Protector with this. And Glorious Protector can't exile this. That being said, you can exile a lot of other things, like, your Lumbering Battlement, to then maybe get all the other ETBs that Lumbering Battlement is storing up. And again, this brings those creatures back right away, which can be huge. Next up, another great card. Abdul Adrian Gorian's Ward. 4/4 Human Warrior for 5 mana. Enters the battlefield. Exile any number of other non-land permanents you control until it leaves the battlefield. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each permanent exile this way. So this can be even better than the battlement, depending on the rest of the cards working with it. Yeah, a very, very good card in its own right, being able to just essentially, again, hey, let's store up those creatures. Let's just make sure we're good to go. We're going to store them up. We're going to be good. And as soon as I blink out of here, yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to just give you a bunch of, soldiers while also, giving those creatures back. So it can be absolutely fantastic play. But there is one reason that it's not quite as good as development, and that would be, again, this is actually a legendary creature, and that is relevant. We'll talk about why here in a little bit. Moving on, Wispy Angel, yet another instant blink effect. Again, unfortunately, just on an angel, so again, can't be blinked by the other ones. Regardless, a 4/4 flyer that says enters battlefield, exile the target creature control, turn the battlefield on someone's control. Again, with these, different Fiend Hunter type effects, essentially, yeah, we can get immediate value from any of our ETBs, and we've got a lot of great ones. And also, again, when it comes to some comboing, we've got some combo moves that we can utilize with these. But now let's take things in a different direction with tactic number 3, Can You Dig It? And we're going to talk about Arik Lore Mage. Now, this one doesn't have an ETB, but it's got a great activate ability. Tap, search your life for a card, put in your graveyard, then shuffle. It's not going to be an instant sorcery, so don't worry about that. Regardless, hey, go tutor up anything. Go get anything out of your library. Put it right in your graveyard. We'll talk about what we might want to get, and it might be, well, again, because we're running all creatures in this deck except for lands, a creature. So Violent Tumor. This one is another great way to just tutor up something for your graveyard. Enters the battlefield, search life for a card, put the card in your graveyard, then shuffle. Getting a creature into our graveyard, a specific creature in our graveyard, can be incredibly impactful for this deck and set ourselves up for success. So we're also going to be running Corpse Connoisseur. Enters the battlefield to be search life for a creature card, put a card in the graveyard. If you do, shuffle your library. You can also unearth it. Again, these being on ETBs can be absolutely huge. So we're also going to be running Gravebreaker Lamia, 4/4. Enters the battlefield, search your life for a card, put in your graveyard, then shuffle. Also, spells you cast from graveyard, custom cast. Most importantly, again, ETB. Go tutor up any card out of your library, get it directly into your graveyard, and set yourself up for success because, well, let's talk about the next tactic. Because now we're going to talk about tactic number 4, Grave Digger, and my goodness, yes, this is where the real stuff starts happening. Karmic Guide, a 2/2 Angel Spirit with flying protection from black, echo cost as well, so keep that in mind. Enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you might be seeing what's happening here. We've got a lot of blink effects. We potentially have got some ways to go tutor things directly into our graveyard. And we've got some creatures with some ETBs that can get creatures right out of our graveyard. So yeah, there's going to be some crazy things going on. Again, the goal is basically this. We are going to loop our Lumbering Battlement and other things as well, and all of a sudden get our ETBs again and again and again, being able to get cards out of our library, get them right into our graveyard, get them right out into play then with a Karmic Guide, or maybe something like a Phyrexian Delver. Now, this one is a bit risky. That being said, yeah, when you're grabbing one creature after another, you can go grab a different creature that's not going to potentially lose you the game. 3/2 Phyrexian Zombie for 5 mana, enters battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Oh, and also you lose life, you let cards mana value. So, yeah, unfortunately, we might lose some life with this. We actually have ways to gain life and kind of negate that. That being said, yeah, when it comes to actually, working through this entire scenario, don't lose the game with this. Yeah, do other things instead, like, get maybe Sister Hospitalizer, and instead of losing life, gain life. A 3/2 Human Cleric, enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Oh, and this time you gain life equal to its mana value. So, yeah, being able to just get creatures out and then all of a sudden gain life too. You can just stack your life total so high your opponents won't be able to touch you. Absolutely crazy. And then actually, I did mention that we were going to be getting all of our creatures out of our library into our, battlefield essentially. Well, library to graveyard to battlefield. We can also get our lands though. Sun Titan. 6/6 Vigilant Giant for 6 mana. Enters the battlefield to may return target permanent card. Converting mana cost 3 less from graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, a great usable and abusable ETB that says, hey, you know what? Yeah, our lands are obviously permanents that have converted mana cost 3 or less. So all of a sudden we can get our lands out of our graveyard too. And also some creatures that don't cost a lot as well. And there's a lot of great ones. But yeah, being able to just say, cool, yeah, use and abuse this ETB. Get lands in the battlefield too. Crazy things can happen. But now let's go to tag number 5, copy paste, because there's a reason I really wanted blue. Mirror image. Clone spells are crazy cool with this strategy. A 0/0 shapeshifter that costs 3 mana. Enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature you control. Yeah, our opponents might have some nice creatures too, but we care about our own for the most part. Again, this can be just pretty disgusting because, hey, again, like I said earlier, we want ways to essentially, store up our creatures like a Lumbering Battlement. You know what's better than one Lumbering Battlement? 2 or 3. Being able to make an extra copy of it, make another copy of it. We keep storing up creatures, including our Lumbering Battlements, and all of a sudden, we can loop them. And when we loop them, we are getting all the ETBs that are stored up with them and all the other creatures again and again and again. And essentially, when that's happening, well, we can go tutor for cards out of our library, get them into our graveyard, get them right out of our graveyard, right into play, maybe even gain some life. Yeah, we can basically just get every single creature out of our library into play, and then also a Sun Titan, get the lands too, so have fun with that. So, of course, we're running a good amount of clone effects, including clone. There you go, for 4 mana, just a simple clone. Evil Twin. This one's got a little more flexibility to it. 0/0. Enter battlefield as any creature on the battlefield, except it gains. Pay blue, black, tap. Destroy the creature's same name. So cool. This can also be removal for you as well. Gigantoplasm. If you really want to make the clone bigger, cool. Or smaller, I guess. Pay X. The creature gets base power, toughness, XX. Basically, it's a regular clone. Undercover Operative. A 0/0. Enter battlefield as any copy of a creature on the battlefield, except enters a shield counter if you control that creature. Most of the time, it's going to have that shield counter. Zero Many Faces. This one's kind of like a double clone for us. 0/0. Enter battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except if it's embalmed, it's also a zombie. So yeah, you can embalm it out of your graveyard, basically a double clone. And keep in mind, when I'm saying that, you can get things going, once you get the Lumbering Battlement thing going on, cool, yeah, you can do that. Get everything out of the library, but just at a base level, we've got an absurd amount of ETBs that we want to take advantage of, and these clones can do a great job of doing that by setting ourselves up. Also, take advantage of a creature in your graveyard with Body Double. This one, again, can work very well with any of those creatures that can essentially, ETB, go get a card of your library, put it in your graveyard. All of a sudden, yeah, I can just do that, and then I get Body Double and play, and it's that creature. Cool. 0/0 Shapeshifter for 5 mana. Enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard. Next up, Mercure Pretender. A clone that is repeatable in a way. For 5 mana, it's a 0/0 into the battlefield, and then, hey, you can also pay 2 blue and bounce it back to your hand so you can kind of reset this clone. Speaking of which, Super Shapeshifter again, a clone for 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, it's turned face up. You can choose a creature in the battlefield. It comes a copy of that, and it's actually going to keep turning face down if you want it to. Morph it for 1 and a blue. Next up, Caladius Assassin. This one's hilarious, actually. A 3/3 with Flash that costs 6 mana, so a decent amount. Enters the battlefield as a copy. Enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of creature on the battlefield, except that has when this creature enters the battlefield, destroy up to one other creature, target creature with the same name as this creature. So basically, again, it says up to, so you don't have to do that when you're copying your own things. That being said, when you kind of get that loop going, and again, when you have clones, you can just choose essentially whatever you need. If you got excess clones that are just being stored up by the battlement, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, you know what? I'd like to get more cards in my graveyard. Or, you know what? I'd like to reanimate more things. Or, yeah, with this, hey, I'll actually just choose all my opponent's creatures and take them all out. Yeah, basically a board wipe once you really get things going. Moving on, Sakashima's Protege, a 3/1 Flash and Cascade, so we can get some extra value out of that. Enters battlefield as a copy of any permanent enter battlefield this turn, so keep that in mind. Finally, Hulking Metamorph. If you really want a 7/7 version of a creature, sure, pay 9 mana. But more likely, we're just going to get a 3/3 version of it by paying 4 mana instead. Next up, let's talk about tactic number 6, Go Get It. And we've got Vedalken Aether Mage, which is an interesting card. And sure, if you're playing in, say, Sliver deck, it can be great. Comes into play, bounce a Sliver. Nice. More than likely, though, we're just going to wizard cycle it away, and then, yeah, just go get a wizard. Get into our hand. We've got a good amount of good wizards in this deck, including ones that, like, maybe go get things into our graveyard. Moving on. Thalia's Lancers. In the battlefield, search your life for a legendary card, reveal, put your hand, then shuffle. Yeah, this can be a great way to go get something like, Abdel Adrian to really get things going. Next up, Ethereal Usher. This one we can transmute away to go get something, that costs 6, essentially. And we've got a good amount of things that cost 6 that can be very impactful. Netherbone Phalanx, yet another one that we can transmute away to go get something that costs 6 as well. Also, something that we can loop and win with if our opponents at least have, one creature each, and we can loop it infinitely. Hey, cool, you're all gone. Each opponent loses 1 life for each creature they control when this enters the battlefield. Next up, let's talk about tactic number 7, keep or toss. And we've got Bizarre Trade Mage, a 3/4 human wizard with flying, enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards and discard 3 cards. Yeah, we're going down on cards with that, but again, keep in mind, hey, with cards like Lumbering Battlement, you don't have to exile every single creature, so do this as many times as you want to, essentially. But also, yeah, we actually want to get certain things into our graveyard. We've got plenty of ways to reanimate creatures, so do so. Get the cards that you need in your graveyard, and yeah, dig deeper into your deck. Speaking of which, Champion of Wits, this won't actually make us go negative on cards. Enters the battlefield, draw cards equal to its power. If you discard 2 cards, we can eternalize it if we really need to, but regardless, most of the time, it's just draw 2, discard 2. Rumor Gatherer. This one helps us out when any creature's on the battlefield under our control. Whenever any of our creatures on the battlefield under our control, we scry 1. The second time is resolve this turn, draw a card instead, which can be quite nice. Master of Winds is really cool. A 1/4 enters battlefield, draw 2 cards, discard a card. And, yeah, that's just basically it, because we got also those other things, but we're not going to cast instant sorceries. I guess wizards. We could switch it if we really want to. Next up, Obscure Interceptor. There we go. 3/1 Flash Lifelink. Enters the battlefield. It connives. When it connives this way, return to 1 target spell to its owner's hand. So basically a way to bounce an opponent's spell and say, you know what, let's not this time. Then we've got Cloud Blazer. ETBs. Gain 2 life, draw 2 cards. Mold Drifter. Just draw 2 cards. And we can evoke it out if we need to. Again, get into our graveyard, get it set up to get back. Then we've got Sage of the Falls. Whenever it or another non-human enters the battlefield control, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Yeah, we've got a lot of non-humans with this deck. Let's dig down through our deck. Let's get cards into our graveyard. Let's set ourselves up for success. Then we've got Sphinx the Lost Truth. 3/5. We can kick it if we really want to. It's going to the battlefield and we draw 3 cards. If it wasn't kicked, we discard 3, which is okay. That's fine. Then there's All-Seeing Arbiter. Finally, enters the battlefield or attacks, draw 2 cards and discard a card. On top of that, whenever you discard a card, target creature opponent controls gets -X, -0 until end of your next turn. Where X is the number of different mana values among cards in your graveyard. This can shut players down from attacking us for a while once we get things going. Next up, though, let's move on to tech number 8, Cradle to the Grave, because we got some other ways outside of, our ETB Karmic Guide type things to get creatures back. Again, we got plenty of ways to set ourselves up to really get those pieces going. This can be a great card. Priest of Fell Rites. Tap, pay 3 life, sacrifice it, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate as a sorcery. That's fine. Again, we can just use this once, or we can unearth it to use it a second time. Doom Necromancer, another great one. 2/2, pay a single black mana, tap, sacrifice, bring a creature card back from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then finally, Whisper Blood Liturgist, a 2/2 human cleric, tap, sacrifice 2 creatures, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yet another great way to say, you know what? Let's go tutor up a card, get into our graveyard, get it right out into play, and get things going. Now let's move on to tech number 9, Grave Consequences, because yeah, once we get all this value train going, our opponents are, well, not going to be, well, doing so well. We've got Aether Channeler, a great card, very flexible when it can do. It's a 2/1 human wizard. For 3 ETBs, choose 1. You get a 1/1 bird with flying. Nice. Return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Nice. Or draw a card. So this can actually be some card advantage for us. Or yeah, we just bounce our opponent's non-land things. And when we get that loop going, you know what? That's just bounce all your things, make infinite birds, draw our library, do whatever you need to do. Next up, Space Marine Devastator. A 3/3 is squad 2 if you want to get extra copies of it. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target to 1 target artifact or enchantment. So again, yet a good way to actually just mess with things. Then we've got Riftwing Cloudscape. This one's quite fun as well. 2/2 comes into play, bounce target permanent, not non-land, permanent back to its owner's hand. So keep that in mind. Yes, this can be great to just use and abuse our own ETBs by bouncing our things back to our hand, maybe replaying them. Or, yeah, if we're finishing out the game and we just really want to just rub in our opponent's faces, what you can do, again, is when you're getting every single one of your creatures and every single one of your lands into play, you can also just infinitely blink this, and all of a sudden, every single one of your opponent's permanents, including their lands, are gone. So, yeah, you just really insult to injury right there. Next up, Aether Snipe. In a smaller way, 4/4, enters the battlefield, return to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and then also evoke it if you need to. There you go. Then there's Angel of Ruins. ETBs exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. So cool, a very good and very easily usable and abusable ETB in this deck, and one that can just decimate your opponent's enchantments and artifacts permanently, and also get plain cycle away if you need to, and also to set yourself up by getting this into your graveyard so you can reanimate it back out. Next up, Meteor Golem. Very simple, very effective. Enters the battle for destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls, and Ashen Rider. Oh my goodness. 5/5 flyer. When it enters the battlefield or dies, exile target permanent. Yeah, that is brutally effective. Finally, let's move on to attack number 10, the end, because, yeah, well, you know what? Let's put our opponents out of their misery at some point. I mean, we just maybe bounced all their things if we really want to do that. We can also just beat them with their own things with Gyruda, Doom in the Depths, a 6/6 Demon Kraken that costs 6 mana. And it says when it enters the battlefield, each player mills 4. You get a creature card with an even converted mana cost from one of those cards on the battlefield under your control. This is a crazy good card in this deck. First of all, here's a scenario. You play this, and then all of a sudden you get, oh, I don't know, maybe a clone effect like Clone. And then all of a sudden you can make a copy of this if you want to and get that ETB again, milling again. Or you get, you know, like the Angel that can blink. Or whatever you get. You've got plenty of ways to use and abuse this ETB. Or, you know, just get your opponent's creatures if they hit something good that has an even converted mana cost as well. Maybe an Eldrazi of some sort. Cool. You can win a lot of different ways with this. And also, again, when you are going infinite, when you can loop, yeah, you just mill your opponents out and put them out of their misery that way. Finally, Radiant Solar is a really, really good card in this deck. 3/6, flying lifelink. First of all, you can discard it for a single white mana. Venture from the dungeon, gain 3 life. So you can set yourself up by getting this into your graveyard to maybe reanimate it back out. But it does say whenever it and other non-token creatures about from your control, venture into the dungeon. And yes, there are 3 different dungeons you can choose for, and they've got a variety of different effects and values and whatnot. But also, there's one that can just take your opponents out. So yes, you've got plenty of ways to take your opponents out by just, you know, again, getting your ETBs again and again and again and again and again, an infinite number of times, essentially. But that's going to attack number 11. Okay, now this is the end. Because, yeah, usually we talk about ramp first, but you know what? I felt like with this kind of episode, it made more sense in the end. Anyways, Dreamscape Artist, a 1/1 human spell shaper, pay 2 and a blue, tap, discard a card, sacrifice a land, go get 2 basics into play on tap. Next up, Gold Mirror. Yeah, I can tap for a white. Cool. Lead Mirror, can tap for a black. Cool. And Silver Mirror, can tap for a blue. Lovely, each costs 2. Yeah, nice. Mirror Convert, yet another mirror. 2/1 with Toxic. I guess technically you could take your opponents out with Toxic if you really wanted to. Tap, pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color. That's going to be worth it early in the game, especially for us. Moving on, Knight of the White Orchid. ETBs, if opponent controls more lands than us. Cool, we get 8 planes. Nice. And again, we can very easily use and abuse ETBs like this. Next up, Ornithopter of Paradise. Can tap for 1 mana of any color, so perfect mana fixing. Low the ground. Lovely. Then we've got Burnished Heart. Pay 3, sacrifice, go get 2 basic lands into play tap. Then again, we got ways to get this back if we really need to and really ramp further. Sure, why not? Skullport Merchant, a great one as well, and one that can get pretty crazy if we are going infinite, because hey, we've got infinite mana now as well. If we really wanted that, cool. Create a treasure token every single time this enters the battlefield. Even if we're not going infinite, still a great way to really use and abuse that. And also, hey, pay 1 a black, sacrifice another artifact or creature, or sorry, another creature or treasure, that's more like it. Draw a card. Yeah, that is a great way to essentially say, you know what, set ourselves up to get a creature in the graveyard, to then, you know, gets ETB again if we, you know, Karmic Guide it. Or yeah, just be able to dig deeper into our deck. And then Scholarship Sponsor. Hey, you know what? Let's even things out. Enters the battlefield, each player controls fewer lands than the player controls the most lands. Search library to basically make up the difference with basics. So cool. This ETBs, and all of a sudden that green player over there that's got a ton of lands, let's take advantage of that. Everyone gets a bunch of lands. And if they keep going further, we just blink it or whatnot. And then finally, Stoic Farmer. We can foretell for 1 and a white. 3/3 enters the battlefield. We go get a basic plains. If opponent controls more lands than us, comes on the battlefield. Except if they don't, that's okay. It just goes to our hand. And we can hero land drop, which is going to be lovely. Now, I did say earlier that, again, this is a pretty weird episode for me, at least, but I felt like bringing it up because, yeah, there's a different version of the deck, and if I remember correctly when I'm editing this and doing all this stuff behind the scenes, I'll try to remember to put both the versions in the deck list links in the description below, so there you go. Ruka Rumel. That's how you say the name. Ruka Rumel? Biologist? Sure, let's go with that. A 3/3 human wizard for 5 mana, 1 of each color, Wooburg. If you want to do this version of the deck instead, yeah, there's some spice to this side as well. Initially, again, I just built it Esper because that was kind of the 3 colors I needed to do what I wanted to do. Eddie did point something out to me, though, that kind of made me move into at least adding green. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. But this commander is kind of perfect for this and kind of what you want to do. First of all, enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. This is going to change depending on the situation that you're in. It says slivers you control and non-token creatures you control the chosen type and other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that are on the battlefield. And also, pay 3 tap, create a 1/1 color sliver creature token. Cool. We don't really care about slivers, and this actually might throw your opponents off. If your opponents are scared of slivers again, yeah, maybe, you might get a little more attention than just playing Chromium. So that's, again, why I had Chromium to start off the episode, and why, if you want that kind of more unknown deck version, Chromium's probably the pick. If your opponents aren't scared of slivers, yeah, sure, use this one if you got, like, a janky version of the deck. Anyways, this one, again, basically says, you know what, we can choose a creature type, and all of a sudden, all of my creatures are going to be the same type. Again, the same is true for creature spells you control, creature cards you own that are on the battlefield. So no matter where those creatures are, they are whatever type I choose, and that can come in huge. That being said, the reason that I actually changed to a 5-color commander, it could have been 4-color, but I went to the 5-color commander, is because of something that Eddie pointed out. And that would be Omori the Collector, because, yeah, that's actually kind of perfect for this deck, and I don't know why I didn't think of that. But yes, I, again, challenged myself with this kind of a deck to essentially do it with all creatures and lands, and Omori just says, hey, I'm over here, I can help you. 4/5 legendary creature ooze for 2 Golgari. Companion requirement, each non-land card in your starting deck shares a card type. So again, every single one of the cards in this deck is a creature. And now, by expanding outside of Esper, we can utilize Omori. Obviously, if Omori wasn't in Golgari and was in the Esper colors, we could just utilize that, but it's not. That being said, when it enters the battlefield, choose a card type. We're going to choose, obviously, creature. Spells you cast, chosen type cost 1 that's cast. This is a great companion for this deck because it says, hey, you've got all those creatures. I'm just going to reduce the cost of every single one of your spells by 1, which again can be absolutely huge for you. So yeah, Mori, a great companion, and one that, again, if you go into 4-color or 5-color, you've got the option of adding with a deck like this. Now, why I chose Rukarumo out of all the 5-color commanders is because of some really weird things, but things that actually work really well. Because, hey, how about a card like Goblin Matron? Does this card make any sense in this deck? Not without the commander, but with the commander it does. A 1/1 Goblin for 3 mana, 2 and a red, enters the battlefield. You may search your life for a Goblin card, reveal it, put in your hand, then shuffle. So this is a very good tutor for Goblin decks, or for every single card in my deck is a creature, and I can make them all into Goblins. Again, our commander, if you're choosing this version of it, essentially says, hey, enter the battlefield, pick any creature type. If you've got Goblin Matron in your hand, great, pick Goblin. Now, all of a sudden, this is a 3-mana creature with an ETB that can go tutor for any non-land card in your deck. So you can go get the exact piece that you need to just get this combination going. And on top of that, again, you've got so many ways to use and abuse. Use and abuse this trigger again. You've got clone spells. You can clone this if you want to. Get that ETB again. Go tutor for something else. You've got ways to reanimate it. You've got ways to blink it. Use all those things to go get the exact cards that you need to set yourself up. And there's some even bigger ways that you can set yourself up. Like, homing sliver. Hey, this is pretty crazy. So, Rukarumo is pretty interesting because it doesn't say you can't choose sliver, even though it's like, hey, sliver plus something else, but you can just be like, no, sliver. Everything in my deck is now a sliver. Homing sliver is a 2/2 sliver that costs 2 and a red. It says, each sliver card in each player's hand has sliver cycling 3, and it's got sliver cycling. So, basically, yeah, all of your creatures are now slivers. They're in your hand, and you can pay 3 for any of those cards. Any of those cards basically in your hand except for your lands, and you can just discard them to tutor for any creature in your deck. This turns all of your cards into Demonic Tutor plus 1 mana, essentially. So pretty gross. Next up, speaking of gross, Iname Death Aspect. I can never know if it's Iname or Iname. I think it's Iname. Anyways, gross. 4/4 Legendary Creature Spirit for 6 mana in total. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for any number of spirit cards, put them in the graveyard. If you do, shuffle your library. Basically, this is just a giant one-off ETB to say, yeah, let's just get every creature that I want in my graveyard at once. Again, you use your commander, you choose spirit, and all of a sudden, every card in your deck, every creature in your deck is a spirit. This ETBs once, you go get all those creatures out of your library, put them into your graveyard, and all of a sudden, hey, you can do some pretty crazy things. It's just like, okay, yeah, I'll just Karmic Guide 1, essentially, clone, which then comes into play as a copy of Karmic Guide, which then Karmic Guides another clone, which copies that. You see where this is going. Crazy things can happen with something like this. So yeah, some absolutely crazy plays if you want to go with that other version of the deck. And with that, this episode is coming to a close, so let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.